Troy Hayslip here with Watershed Fly Shop in Corvallis, Oregon. I'm going to tie a winter steelhead fly that we call the tug. I'm going to get right to it. Just start my thread in the middle. I'm tying on a tube from Pro Sport Fisher. I like these tubes, honestly, because everything fits well together. They have lots of cones and lots of options. I'm going to start with a dubbing loop in the back. Just throw some dubbing in there for now and just get me a little hot spot on the back because it's shrimp pink ice dub from Hairline. And just gonna space out the dubbing, you know, relatively nicely. I'm not particular with dubbing. Notice I'm holding the bottom of the thread and then I'm gonna release the tension, but just kind of muck it up a bit. Spin it up one more time. Go ahead and wrap. A little more dubbing than I wanted, so just gonna pick it out. And then I'm gonna come around, tie it off. All right. Okay, next step. Golden pheasant. And I'm gonna wrap this golden pheasant, and you see at the thick part of the stem, there's a decent amount of excess that I don't need, and I don't want to wrap the thick part, the real thick part of the stem. It just ends up getting lumpy, so I'm gonna tie it in by the tip. I will say this fly has been successful thus far. You can do this if you like. Take the back of your scissors, go ahead and comb the feather into place because we want to wrap it, so we'd like it kind of facing back. I always put a lot of stress on doing that just so it sets down nicely for me. And you know, these feathers with these tapered stems, which most are obviously, but can make it a little difficult on you. So just wrap back, you know, just palmering it a little bit as we go. You don't have to go this fast if it's fast for you, and you don't have to go this slow if it's slow for you. So just do it at your own pace. And all right. Go ahead, I'm going to cut the stem there. And this is my dubbing ball there is acting as kind of the prop for this and for the golden pheasant. And then this golden pheasant is actually going to act as the prop for a saddle hackle feather that I'm going to use as horns. So I'm going to put my Lady Amherst on first. I put them on in twos, okay, in pairs, and I'm going to put two here, two on the bottom, two on the other side of the bottom. Now, Lady Amherst can be a pain in the butt. This is natural Lady Amherst. That's behaving so far. You can be particular about it or just throw it on there. Honestly, it's a contrast for me. It's just a contrast material. I'm just gonna make sure they kind of line up a little bit. That one's a little shy. There we go. Okay, I'm happy enough with that. Don't get too crazy on it. I'll pull that forward, wrap a couple times behind it. I should mention that I'm using 50D white from Vivus, and there's a reason why we use this. This has become my favorite thread. It's really, really thin and really, really tough. I mean, you could tie, you know, size 14 dry flies with this, and I'm gonna tie a steelhead fly with it at the same time. It's pretty incredible thread. Everybody should have this thread. Now it only comes in white and black, so you could have Sharpies on you for that purpose. Okay, just want to make sure it's relatively lined up. It just kind of looks relatively the same on each side. You can get as particular as you want on this, but don't get overly particular. It'll drive you nuts. Now for the horns. Now these actually set off the back end a little ways, anywhere from about 3/4 to an inch further back than the Lady Amherst. So you can measure it right off the Lady Amherst, and that's roughly 3/4 of an inch or so. So I'm gonna peel my feather back a little ways, and I picked these up from two sides. I picked one up from this side, one up from this side, because I want them one to be on each side, and so they'll fold out. They'll fold out nicely if you pick them from both sides. Strip that extra feather off of there. Okay. Just tying it in the right up against that golden pheasant tippet. Okay. I want it to just kind of skew on this side of the tube. So one thing I'm seeing right off the bat is they're not setting right already. So we're gonna see if this guy will set on the other side nicely for me, because the other feather is certainly not gonna play well on this particular side, on the far side. So we're gonna see if I can put this guy on the far side. Yeah, it's sitting okay. Okay, I'm happy with that. Now I can put this guy on the near side. I sell these occasionally, so I really want them to look right. One thing that I do is I'll pick them both up, because I want these to prop up. I want these to be known, and I want them to irritate the living crap out of a steelhead. It's important. I'm gonna tie the stems all the way down. You would think that these would just, because they're just being tied in by a stem and I'm not tying them in by any of the barbules, you'd think they'd come off and come unbuttoned, but really they don't. They're actually pretty friendly. So I'm just tying in wire on my side of the tube. We're gonna wrap a saddle hackle woolly bugger style all the way down on the body. This is mini fly flat braid from Hairline. It's kind of a cool product. It's a body material. It's really, really easy to wrap, and it goes, for me, and I think for most steelheaders, it goes in place of dubbing. And I like it because it doesn't soak up water, because the idea is to get the fly down in the zone. So I'm gonna tie this thing sparsely for that reason. Okay, let me go ahead, start this. The first wrap is the most important wrap, and it's okay if it's not tapered perfectly. This is not a nymph or a dry fly. We're gonna cover this thing up with saddle hackle, and there's gonna be some fox that kind of strings out, and there's gonna be some rhea. Let me make sure that that's all buttoned down there. Gonna go ahead and tie that off now. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it now. Get one solid wrap back here, and then I'm gonna make my way down, in this case, the tube rather than the shank. And gonna kind of find my way in there right by the back station. And I'm gonna make sure that I wrap on every single one of these. I'm gonna wrap back over the opposite direction. Going, well, I feel like I should wrap the opposite way first and then go back over. You can do whatever you want, as long as you're wrapping that saddle hackle down. And notice I'm kind of working the wire in there so it doesn't trap too much of that feather. Okay. I should also say this fly works in many different colors. And I'm just trying to grab that stem back there without cutting any of my silver, or excuse me, my golden pheasant. There we go. Okay. Use your bodkin to fix your mistakes. That's what it's there for. Tidy things up. Okay, and we're gonna put some fox and some ripple ice fiber that's already prepared. I'm gonna just grab my fox and make sure I have that ripple ice fiber kind of where I'm gonna tie that in. All right, go ahead and open up my loop. Now, I think good advice here would be to go ahead and use some dubbing wax. Again, holding on back here, it's important, keeping the tension on the thread. And then these loops just drive everybody nuts. So I want to make sure and cover this. I'm holding on. I've got a little bit of excess material hanging out the back side, and just spin it until you feel like, ooh, that's really tight. And then in my case, I'm just going to let her go. I'm going to let her go, and we're building a prop for our front station. So fox is really good at that. That is Arctic fox from a tail. I'm just gonna pick it out, and this is just a part of the process. Take your time with this kind of thing and kind of figure out where you want it. I really like to get this thing spun up pretty good, and that's probably good enough. There is a point of no return where you will snap your thread, and I apply pressure throughout the entire process of getting this thing tied in. So, I mean, I'm pulling as hard as my vise will let me pull without bending that tube needle. So now I'm just gonna palmer it back. I've wrapped it around as many times as I can, and I'm happy with the amount of fox there. And I know once I pick that out one more time, it's gonna be hopefully perfect, but it's gonna be good. It's gonna make me happy. Bodkin, the most useful tool in fly tying. Just picking it out, making sure that none of those little foxy fibers are trapped in the ripple ice fiber as well. You can see that stuff breathes really well, and I'm gonna kind of cut that in a lazy fashion because I don't want to cut it straight across, and I'm just gonna kind of go in there and snip away at it. The ripple ice fiber is what I'm cutting there. All right, now I'm gonna throw in another loop. Noticing my thread is wanting to mess with me a little bit. I am grabbing my Rhea, which is a really, really cool material. Just kind of cut my, and I want to make sure it's long enough. I mean, I'm going to have to tie darn near perfect because this Rhea just happens to be a little shorter than what I'd like it to be, but that's okay. throw it in there anyways, and I'm gonna prove to myself that I'm a reasonably decent fly tyer. I have the orange towards the back, and that's purposeful. You know, there's gonna be some orange rhea feathers that get in towards the front a little bit, but I'm just gonna separate them. And notice how I'm holding my loop, keeping pressure on it throughout. Just gonna separate these guys. All right. Now, I'm gonna pull them down together as good as I can without pulling them out. Again, great time for dubbing wax. Good. Okay, they're relatively even there. Okay, again, spin it, and hopefully this will go well. Lots of tension there. I'm gonna move my fox out of my way. Just kind of slowly release it. I can see that there's some that are misbehaving already, which is okay. I can fix it as we go. Just grab that bugger there. And what happens when one kind of falls out of place a little bit, it'll mess with the other one. So you can see it spinning. Kind of spin it from here now. I don't want a bunch of additional material. You can see there's kind of like a tag end on those guys. I don't want that. I'm gonna cut them out pretty tight to the thread. I'm pretty confident in my loop at this point, so I'm kind of cutting these guys out. I mean, here on the Central Coast, we've got rivers that have, you know, they're relatively technical. They're not big gravel bars. We don't have a bunch of big gravel bars to swing, and you know, you can kind of use lighter flies. We don't have that here. I actually think it's a very difficult place to fish and to swing flies at, for sure. I mean, to fish it, it's not so bad if you're just, you know, going out of the boat with a indicator rig or whatever, bobber or whatever you're doing. But to swing flies, I'm really specific, and you better know what you're doing. Better know what you're doing, or get somebody that knows what they're doing. So, all right, I'm gonna tie that off. I'm gonna tie it right on to the additional, I don't know if you guys can see that very good, but I'm gonna go ahead and cut down on these a little bit more. Boom, boom. Okay, now I can kind of tie them down and I'm fine. Crazy, little crazy little bump there, and you can see how well that fox plays into that. It's pretty cool. Next up, we have the dumbbell eyes. So I'm gonna put the dumbbell eyes on the bottom side. Okay, I'm just gonna put those on there. One side, and I can put them relatively close. We're still gonna come in with a finished feather. I just kind of go one way, go the other way under it, one way, and then come back. And then as soon as I feel it kind of tight, I'll start doing a few figure eights. But I'm also just really looking at the top there to make sure it's exactly where I want. And okay, up and over figure eight style. And I'll even tie on one side, tie in front. I think that's what people miss a lot of the time. Shove my thread back there. Silver pheasant, our finished feather, tying in by the tip, just on top there. Now, to ensure that that feather stays put, the tip is still there. You can fold the tip around, palmer, bend your feather. You know, don't pull too hard because the bottom of the stem is much weaker than the top. Let's see, let's just pray that this bad boy goes on nicely. Just one right after the other, just kind of pulling that stuff down and put it right in front there. Come on, guy. All right. Okay, gonna go ahead and tie that off. That's okay. So I'm just gonna rough it up There's nothing wrong with roughing up a fly and kind of getting those that silver pheasant loose so it doesn't stick all the way just to itself. And so it splays out just a hair. I've got a little, you know, Velcro brush guy here to kind of just get things loose. All right, whip finish tool. Let's get this bad boy done. And 4 or 5 turns, your preference. I do it 3 times because you saw how long this fly took. 3, 4, 5, and I'm done. Just get relatively close. Don't worry about that little tag. I leave myself a little room because I'm going to burn the end of this fly and it's going to fold over kind of like a mushroom and encompass the head. Let's go ahead and burn the end of that. Use the blue part of the flame. What I do right after I do that is I stick it on the needle and I stick it on backwards and I throw it all the way at the end of the needle. The hole diameter is plenty thick enough to handle any tippet size that I'm gonna throw. And I zap the top and I zap the bottom as good as I can. But let's put the hook guide on. So just grab the middle of the tube, press it on there. Because these hackles are pretty long, I'm gonna have that thing as long as I can. And then when I put the hook in, I'm gonna tie it on with a loop knot, and it's gonna ride back as far as I can make it ride back.